Cause we've done this before, so you come on in. Make yourself at my home, tell me where you been. Pour yourself something cold, baby, cheers to this. Sometimes you gotta stay in, and you know where I live. Yeah, you know what we is. Sometimes you gotta stay in. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my house. Morning comes and you know that you wanna stay. Close the blinds, let's pretend that the time has changed. Keep our clothes on the floor, open up champagne. Let's continue tonight, come on, celebrate. That's how we do. Sometimes you gotta stay in, and you know where I live. Yeah, you know what we is. Sometimes you gotta stay in. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my duck off the crib, the spot, the pad. But my house is your house if you throwing it back. Excuse me if my home draining the sand. Soon as these happy faces land, you can run with the cash. Home run, slam dunk, touchdown pass. Mi casa es tu casa, so it ain't no holding back. Another shot of vodka, you know what's in my glass. It's my house, just relax. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house.
Hello, everyone, and good whatever wonderful moment of the day you are enjoying on your time zones as you either watch us or listen to us right now or later on through the recording. My name is Minola Jacques. I will be your co-host today. We have tech and logistics whisperer Jessa in the backstage taking good care of us. And we will be spending the next hour enjoying another conversation part of our June series, Everything Career Development and Job Search. Also, big thank you for your patience with the extra 2 minutes to start. It looks like technology had its own returnship program. So, Jessa, let's make the most out of our short time today. Please help me bring the wonderful lineup of speakers on the screen. And just a kind reminder to everybody, we will be discussing about building your returnship plan, strategies for re-entering the workforce after a career break. So yesterday, we had an amazing conversation about what are the best ways to frame and reframe career breaks, whether in a CV, cover letter, or during a job interview. So I was so looking forward to today and so happy that for a little while, the thunderstorms give us a connectivity breather. Just in case I drop off, please just carry on with the conversation. I bet that with you on the screen, people won't even notice that I'm gone. So a big welcome again to everybody who joined over the past couple of minutes. Please, as always, do drop us a short note. Let us know where you're connecting from. And also a big encouragement. Use the comments and use the chat to drive your own conversations. So consider all the questions are equally open to you as they are to our speakers. And let us know how returnship feels in your country, for you personally, for the people around you, We always find fascinating nuances across geographies, across generations, across industries, and it's always such a joy to hear from you. So, end of my blabathon here. I will start to pass the e-mic around as you appear on my screen clockwise. And I will ask you to first just shortly introduce yourselves. And also, I am curious, what made you have this returnship into the Hacking HR conversation? What was so important in the topic that you took the time to be here today? Tara, welcome. So good to see you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning from California. I'm Tara Turk Haynes. I'm the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Talent Acquisition at Leaf Group. Excellent question. I am very passionate about representation in the workplace, which is why DEI and talent acquisition go together at Leaf Group. I talk to candidates all the time, and there is a shame for some of them in terms of returning to the workplace that breaks my heart. And so sometimes I'll take my Leaf Group hat off and say, listen, let me just give you some advice. So I will always do that. I will always advocate for the person who's trying to make the best that they can within the workplace. And so that's why I'm happy to be here to share my thoughts.
Thank you. Debbie, welcome. Good to see you.
It is always a joy, real joy to see you, Manola. And I'm so excited to be with these fellow panelists. So greetings from Chicago. It is sunny today. Guess it's almost lunchtime. We were talking backstage, whether it's coffee time or not. So we've got some big fans. Why am I here? So former chief talent officer, running my own sort of consulting group, really kind of looking at lots of facets, whether it's coaching or organizational strategy and talent. And like Tara, like I have seen such concern, shame, at how people are thinking about returning. And I think all of us, coming out of the pandemic, we saw a lot of shifts. And we saw a lot of people that needed to take breaks. And I don't know about fellow panelists, but my guess is between panelists and participants, how many of us are members of the sandwich generation, which is growing. And so we've needed to take time off. I took leave, navigating my parents' decline and ultimate death. And so it's just a topic that I think is so critical to us. And then from a talent perspective, there's top talent out there. And I think this is an untapped resource. And so my hope is that we can help encourage the employer side and the employee side and how we can bring people together. So that's why I'm here, and I'm so passionate about this topic.
Thank you, Debbie. Laura, welcome. It's been a while since we shared a conversation. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Manal, it's great to be on a panel with you again. I'm very excited about this one. I'm Laura Schroeder. I'm a consulting CMO and brand strategist, and I've had several career breaks. A couple were maternity related, others not. And I've also hired a lot of people who had been on a break. I've hired mothers returning from maternity leave, sometimes extended maternity leave because I'm over here in Europe. I'm in Munich. I've hired people who had been laid off or were without a job for either sabbatical or various reasons, as well as people in remote locations. I mean, a whole grab bag of different people. And these people that I hired were so wonderful to work with, and they were so enthusiastic to be returning to the workforce, and they did such a great job that I'm just really excited about people who take a break, either take the break they need or they take a break because they have to take a break. As a hiring manager, I fully support it. I think there's been a stigma against time off in the past, but I think that tide is starting to shift, and I'm very, very eager and excited to help shift it.
Thank you so much. Carrie, always a joy to say welcome to you.
Oh, thank you, Manila. I appreciate that. Likewise. And why my reason for joining today is a few. One, I actually recently went through a shift. I went from one company to another. I had been at one organization for 18 years. intentionally took a break as I left there and then went back into the workforce. So I've been playing in this very recently, so have my own experience. And then I think in terms of why do I want to share that? We are obviously, everyone on this call super accomplished. Everyone listening to this call super accomplished. It's an unbelievable time when you're in that gap or returning to test your own resilience and strength. And it's a great place for imposter syndrome to show up. It's a great place for insecurities to show up. And so I think it's a conversation that's very worth having, and really appreciate the opportunity to do it transparently and honestly with this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Anju, this panel just gets so much better when you're here. So last but not least, welcome.
Thank you, Manola. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, everybody. My name's Anju Chaudhary, pronounced as she and her, and I lead content leadership and business portfolio at Skillsoft. If you're new to us, we're an ed tech company who believe in providing democratizing the skills for people, and so you can unleash that. So basically, learn. The reason I'm here today is kind of actually very similar to what the rest of the panel said. I was a person who took a break to take care of my family. I took a extended maternity break myself. I've built programs for returnship and reboarding people after their career breaks. And then I coach women for returnship programs. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. I was trying to look for some statistics, and according to a LinkedIn survey, 62% of all employees worldwide have taken a career break, and 64% of women have done so. So I thought that was quite interesting. I'm part of that statistics at some point, but there's also an opportunity for us to be able to actually talk about actionable strategies that people should be able to use. And hopefully, we should be able to, through this panel, impact employers to think more strategically about returnship programs, and for employees who are taking a career break to feel confident to do so. And if they're planning to come back, hopefully through this panel, they should be hear about some strategies that help them ease back into the workforce. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks, Manola.
Thank you all so very much. Now, before we go deep into the topic, I would like to take a few minutes and sit in the context of this conversation. What I heard from your first round of introductions and what came out quite clearly from what we discussed yesterday, recruiters pretty much keep an open mind and they try to reassess career breaks in order not to leave talent on the table. And surprising or not, it is mostly within candidates that a lot of misperceptions, a lot of limiting beliefs build a life of their own. And Carrie, since you mentioned, how a bridge period, can bring an amazing opportunity for self-discovery and self-reacquaintance and self-awareness, I would invite you to lead us into this conversation. And then you all know the drill. Unmuting competition is officially open. Just build your conversation from there. Carrie, please.
My pleasure. Thank you. And yeah, I left the role that I was in based on a restructuring of the responsibilities for the team, and had the choice to stay at the organization, had the choice to leave, chose to leave, and then intentionally took a quarter off. And I didn't even try to look for a job in that quarter, just to do that recharge. And I joked with friends, but meant it seriously and said, when else in your life do you get the equivalent of summer vacation as an adult? And P.S. Debbie, I just need to say I feel for you for the reasons that you left. And I understand it. I'm not quite in all that, but if I look at the opportunity to take some time, we rarely get time. So if I listen to some of the reasons people left, maternity leave is not leave because you've got nothing to do. You've got a baby to take care of. That's not a whole lot of relaxing going on. There's a lot of learning and a lot of stress and a lot of change. If you're leaving because you have other reasons that are not restorative, I'd say that being able to take some time, and it was interesting in preparation for this when we were all sharing our expectations, building a story about yourself and building clarity of what you want and taking some time to prepare for putting yourself in an opportunity where you're going to be accepted, rejected, challenged, asked, exposed, I think is really valuable to do some self-awareness work, some expectations work on what do you want, what don't you want, what do you have to offer, and building that strong brand and that strong understanding of who you are and what you want, and who you aren't and what you don't want. Because candidly, there's a lot of opportunity. And in somebody who's coming back, they might not think they deserve the thing that they want. They might not think they can ask for the thing that they want. But being able to be really clear around what you want as well as what you don't can distill and simplify the process of returning into the workplace, because there is so much. It's like when you say to somebody, you know, what do you want for dinner? Food. What kind? What food? How much? What price? What, you know, what kind of job do you want? You know, how big is it? How small is it? Do you want to manage people? Do you not want to manage people? How long do you want to work? Do you want to commute? Do you want to be remote? Having some answers to all that can really help you navigate. And to the point of networking, it can help your network help you. Because I would say that people who know you and care about you want to be able to help you, but the more information you can give them on what help to provide, the easier it is for them to say, this is an opportunity I can help you with. This is a connection I can make for you. So without answering, I could continue on for the whole hour and talk about this topic, but a couple of starters for, you know, I think it's really important to take some time to consider and define what you want and who you are, and then share that and share it with as many people as you can come across.
Thank you, Carrie.
I'd like to, thank you, Carrie. This was very helpful. I'd like to actually first start acknowledging that taking a career break is a privilege in itself, because not everybody has that opportunity. And to recognize that if people were forced into a career break, they would try to get another opportunity just to go along. I was privileged that when I had my second child, I was like, you know what? I haven't had a day after I graduated from my MBA degree, and I've had jobs lined. So if leave Friday one job, join Monday the next one. I never had an opportunity to take a break. So here, because my husband could sustain the family financially, I had an opportunity because we'd shifted to a new country. I was like, I'm going to take a break. And that worked for me until a year later. I was like, you know what? I'm ready to go back to work. And it was kind of hard because my resume actually showed another country where I'd moved from, and it wasn't getting picked up. And my personal stories, I'd reached out to my previous manager from IBM and I said, you know what? I'm ready to be back at work, and I'm not sure how to approach this. We had a lunch conversation. He recommended some job opportunity, and I had a job within a week. So I want to actually share this, that this was my privilege of actually building sponsorship for a very long time. I'd worked on that relationship for past 8 years. He knew of what I bring to the table, could vouch for me, and I still say he was in a position to influence and provide me that job. So there are many things that work very favorably in my condition, and that might not be the case. Being able to take that break, coming back from that work and being able to find a job, working with people who already knew, so they were not judging me when I was getting back to workforce, rather I had a great support system. And it might not work the same way for everybody. However, you do have control of your narrative. And I want to just build upon what Carrie said. When you take a break, you do have, even if you don't have time to do trainings and doing many other things in terms of networking, etc., you can build a narrative for yourself. How do you say that story to yourself? If you say that with full confidence that I took charge of my career and took that break and now I'm ready to be back, it's going to sound very differently as compared to I had to take that break and now I'm not sure how to approach this. So that narrative can actually play really big role in how you confidently approach marketplace better.
I want to add to that, Anju. I think that was a really great point in terms of narrative. For me, because I'm in day-to-day recruiting, a lot of the return to work people I've seen are affected by the pandemic, specifically here in the United States. And so there is a lot of this job disappeared, right? Like there's, you know, it's it's really grave because I think a lot of people are in shock about how fast the workplace and the industries are changing. So a lot of people I talk to are second career, right? So they're leaving one career and going to an entirely different one. And so I think what's really important to kind of capitalize on what Anju's saying is like your narrative matters. Like there's no shame in you saying like, this job ended, I was laid off, but I have these other skill sets. And practically speaking, have multiple resumes that speak to different things that you actually want to do. Because one of the things that really is hard from a recruiting standpoint is someone who blindly applies to multiple jobs and they have no skill sets attached to the role that we're looking for. I can't connect the dots because of the sheer amount of people who are applying to our roles. So meet me halfway, help me understand how you can best be qualified for this role. So have multiple resumes that speak to the various different skill sets we all have. Like none of us are mono skill set. We don't just like move this pencil from one side to the other. When you think about how much you've been able to do, I've got friends in the entertainment industry who are really affected by this writer strike. I'm like, you are a project manager extraordinaire. You know what I'm saying? Like to be able to pull this person together to get this thing done, that's what your resume is. And so be creative and think outside of the box in terms of like, when you're returning, how can you use what you've already got, use that narrative Anju is talking about, and apply it so that the other person doesn't have to work so hard to understand what you're trying to do.
Can I continue to bridge on that too? I think there's this piece of narrative I think is so powerful, right? And that we can say we do have agency in how we choose to tell our story. And sometimes we want to increase the degree of agency or community or whatever it is. So I absolutely agree. There's this power in that. I think, Tara, what you had said something that I thought was so important, which is, if you're doing a second career, or let's say you've been a stay-at-home parent and it's been several years and you're coming back to the workforce, maybe it might be the first time or it's an extended period of time. I think that there's some education that your currently employed network can help you with, because the job market looks radically different now than it did 2 years ago, than it did pre-pandemic. And I think honestly, in some good ways and in some challenging ways. And the good ways is I think we're starting to really look at skills and really looking at, you can move from a successful career in project management over here in finance, or you can go from marketing to research over here. And it's like, if we can get better at talking about skills. So I do think that there is some education that if you're looking to make a return and it's been a while, understand how recruiters are talking about it, understand how hiring managers are talking about it, understand how organizations are looking at their talent and what narrative they have. And I think you'll be able, once you understand that, to then look at yourself and look at your experiences and say, here are the skills I have, and here's the results that I was able to drive with these skills, and here's why I think it is going to translate well. So to your point, Tara, like I can meet you halfway. I probably have to do a little bit of education on how you're thinking about it these days, what's important to you. But the good news is I think anyone in your network can help you with that. So I think that's an important piece of your own narrative, and then just like understand the context, and the context seems to be evolving as a workforce.
Yeah, and I'll since I haven't, I'll weigh in as well. This all could sound like it's a lot, right? You've got to go work your network, you've got to go inform yourself, you've got to go talk to people, etc. And it is a lot. But if you do this work, if you really understand what it is you bring to the table, what you want to do, what your narrative is, then you're helping the person on the other side of the table pick you, find you. They want to find you. You have to remember the hiring manager who's sitting across from you, they really want you to be the one. They're not against you. They would love it if you were the perfect candidate. So this preparation really makes you stand out. You would think in this day and age, with all the coaching and advice about going and applying for a job, that every candidate would show up fully prepared with a polished narrative, and that's just not the case. If you walk in the room and you've got you've got all of these pieces and you're very articulate about what you want and what you offer, you are going to stand out. And if this job doesn't turn into the offer, then the next one probably will, because you will absolutely differentiate yourself. It's very worthwhile.
Mm. Thank you all so very much. And also thank you, Carrie, for dropping the link in the comments. Now, what is very, very clear is that we all have our own reasons for going into a career break, just as much as we all have our own reasons for considering returning to work. And I was very curious while listening to you. Are there any guiding questions that someone who thinks about returning to work would find a lot of guidance in? And, just a few of the ones that I've heard. Should I go back to the same industry or function? Yeah. Should I go full time from the start? And that has an additional layer of complexity, with some companies asking employees to return to the office full time. Should I consider something completely different? Where do I start? So I would really ask you, are there any guiding questions that for someone considering to return to work, it would help to have these mental and emotional checklists in their mind? And I would also like to open this question to the audience. Is there anything that you have found particularly meaningful as you navigated career-changing decisions? And Tara, I would invite you to lead us into this round.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important is that a lot of the people I talk to, they're desperate, right? Because, they need a job. And a lot of times when we need a job, we're in a position where we don't feel like we have the luxury to take the time and investigate and research. We will do whatever we think is necessary. And I think, to Debbie's point, the job market has changed so drastically. And I love that some of that means that candidates and people are essentially saying what's important to them. I have kids now. I have my parents who've moved in with me because of the pandemic. For whatever reason, do you need to be at home part of the time? I think you have to go through your own checklist to see what your life looks like now and what could change without you spending an exorbitant amount of money to put your kids in daycare, right? Or because a lot of women left the workplace because daycare is so expensive in the United States, right? So they're like, it's a salary essentially, so why don't I just stay home? Are there things that you can't waver on? You've got to make a list of those things, and when you start looking at jobs for yourself, match those things out. Like this is something that really I can't move away from. I have to be at home from Monday through Thursday from 12 to 3 to get my kids. There's a lot of talk about remote and hybrid going away. I don't necessarily think hybrid is going away. I think remote for some companies is permanent. So, a lot of people are trying to find those kinds of jobs. I don't think they're going to go away completely. I think Q4 will be a reset because I think there's a lot of other things happening, corporate real estate, all these other things in the United States. But I do think you will be able to find a position that works best for you. And I think what's really intimidating for people is when they read the news and they're like, all these massive layoffs. Well, there are also larger companies who are doing resets. So it's not like, there won't be any jobs available. When you look at their job boards, they still have some. So don't panic over those things, but make your list of what you can't waver on. And then when you're applying for a job, make sure that those jobs align, right? So like if they're telling you you're on site 5 days and you've got to pick up your kids, don't apply to that job. Like it's just not something, you can't make that work. Don't do that stress to yourself. So I think there's just like a life questions you have to ask yourself. And you can, in this market, you can. Like our parents, not so much. We're here now to facilitate the change in workplace. So I think we should continue to do that and be truthful with ourselves.
Tara, yes. And I think this is beautiful. As you can see from the comment section, everybody appreciates the advice that you gave. And I think it's really important because they're non negotiables. So, one is if I need to pick up the children and that's going to be the case, that's not going to change over a period of time. To address your question regarding how do I think about career, do I start from beginning again? Do I completely switch and what happens? I think first point will be to look internally for yourself and create your skills inventory and sit down and say, what do I bring to the table? And really think about it. Even though your career is your career, but you don't have to do it alone, which means think about it when you're about to buy a house or a new car. You actually consult with friends and family, you do your research, you try to see trends. I think that would be really awesome too. So do the trends, if you want to hire a career coach, and if that's again, I'm now coming from a place of privilege if that's an option. However, there are people who would probably do it pro bono. So search for those kind of people on LinkedIn. And if you're able to have an access to somebody like that, ask them the questions on how to approach it. Skills inventory, what are your non-negotiables? How do you want to approach and what careers are trending in future where your skills might be applicable? Then scour for those job roles on LinkedIn or other places where you search for jobs. And then practice. I think that's really helpful too. I'd be happy to have myself mock interviewed by my friends and say, you know what, recruitment something that you do day in day out, could you do a professional interview with me and then provide me feedback so you feel confident before you jump into the actual experience. That simulated experience will help you find on how you're approaching these interviews. How do you say your narrative?
Thank you.
I'll jump in with a couple of thoughts in here. One is looking at who your personal board of directors is. So when you think about if you're in a non-work setting, just in life in general, there's a lot of research that you reflect the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you spend the most time with your 1-year-old child, you're probably not having adult conversations, which is why I see lots of moms going, oh my God, I need a mom nearby because I need to talk to somebody who has whole words and whole sentences. So part of it is thinking about, who's your board of directors and who are the people who can give you guidance, to your point, Andrew, of who's your network, but cultivating a specific collection of friends, not everybody but a specific collection who can be a sponsor, a mentor, a coach, a buddy, an advocate, and connect them to where you want to be. So if you know somebody who's in an industry you're trying to look at, somebody who's in a job you're trying to look at, somebody who's in geography, whatever the reasons are that you're picking them, get them together and help them become, in a somewhat systematic way, that group who can coach you. The other thing I would observe, and I've said this for years, I think looking for a job is like dating. When you're desperate, you have a sign over your head that says desperate. And when you're attractive, everyone wants you. And so when you were in a job and you were thriving, everybody wanted you everywhere that you were. And if you're not feeling really good, that comes across too. So being kind to yourself and really getting in a place, and I appreciate that it's a privilege, but if you don't have the privilege of time, investing the time in yourself of, do I do some meditation? Do I go for a walk? Do I feel healthy? Do I feel well? Do I feel good about me as a person? And that doesn't necessarily need to cost money, but how do I take the time to feel as ready and kind and prepared for the experience of making yourself vulnerable, which looking for a job is. So the other part of it is really, how do you build some resilience to navigate through what's going to be an exposing experience? And that board of directors you have can be a good touchstone to come back to and say, I did this interview. Here's what went well, here's what didn't, et cetera, so that you've got a team around you that if you were at work, they'd be the team you work with. But how do you build a work-like team around you who can help you navigate through it?
Yeah, and jumping right into that's so true. Having that network of people who can help you, and it doesn't have to be 10 people who have exactly the connections to the job you want. But something else to consider, and I'm gonna, with my hiring manager hat on, the hiring manager has probably decided about you within the first 5 minutes, and it's a combination of things. But in my case, it was often about
just like dating. They've decided.
Yes. Although over time, you can, if you know someone long enough, you can win them over. But you've got to think of it as, this is why the preparation is so important. Being so clear in your mind about what it is you want and what it is you bring and how you are going to solve that busy hiring manager's problem. And if you really think about, okay, I'm interviewing tomorrow at company X and my hiring manager is so-and-so, I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn just to see what they're about, what they've done. Maybe there's something in common that we can discuss. But I am going to put myself in their shoes and imagine, what is the problem they really need me to solve? There's some big thing that they want me to take off their table. So instead of just going in and doing the usual, okay, I've got this background and I've got these skills, if you can turn it a bit, and you don't even have to be 100% right, because that's a good conversation. But I think what you're looking for, you're a company that does this. I think what you're probably looking for is this. You're probably seeing this kind of challenge or whatever. You probably have this kind of hole in your organization. And here's what I can do. Here's how I would approach it. And right out of the gate, the manager is thinking, yes, when can you start? Because again, the manager's busy, and the manager, although they may within 5 minutes decide not to hire you, they are on your side in the first moment, because they would love it if their search ends right now with you. So make it, coming back to what Tara said so wonderfully, make it easy for them. Meet them halfway.
Debbie, my heart goes out to you. It's always so difficult to be the last one to speak in these conversations.
I would like us to pivot a little bit, because I've been thinking about, I think it's if you have shorter breaks, and I'm curious what this amazing group of panelists are thinking about if I've had a longer break. So someone's out there and they've been out of the workforce for a while. And I say this so I'm, on the faculty at Northwestern at an org change and learning program. And I've been there for over 10 years, and I've seen students come in, right? There are some with, a little work experience and they're looking to move ahead. There's a lot that are looking for career change, right? And they're making that investment. And again, Anju, it's about privilege, right? So they've had the privilege and they're using a graduate degree to help them make that transition. And then I was thinking about my recent job with internships and apprenticeships and returnships. And I'm wondering, how can we also get more creative? So if you have the luxury of not needing to immediately go back, right? So if it's not like I need to get the paycheck in to keep my mortgage and to keep a roof over my kid's house, et cetera. What are ways in which we can get our feet wet? We can try things out. We can do internships for people with experience. So I will tell you, as a person who was leading a team that was very lean, I constantly looked for, what's my staff mix and where can I be creative and who can I give opportunities to in a project basis or a short-term basis, et cetera, that's not your typical intern. I think we do a nice job for those just entering the workforce. I would love to see us how can we provide opportunities for people that then get something back on their resume and we can see, wow, someone coming in at 40, what they can offer. Maybe it's a new space. Maybe they're returning after a while. So I would just love to maybe shift if we're willing to do that, to say, what are some more creative ways, or how can we think about this if I'm really looking to start anew after a long break?
And I've had 2 or 3 people in the last year who I've had connected with me, where others in my network have sent people my way where somebody's been looking to do exactly what you're describing. And in many cases, it was, if there was somebody, for example, who is in education in K through 12, looking at trying to get into corporate America, to change where they sat and what they did. And to the point of transferable skills, you look at Skillsoft, Anju, there's tons of things that somebody who's in K through 12 entirely understands when you look at the capabilities and requirements. And one of the things was exactly that, Debbie, of, I said, you can go on projects in a role that is either internship internally. So finding through your network somebody to say, can I go help as a free intern? But also, I said, you get on a project and the skills you have, you could go somewhere you are so overqualified in a part-time basis that you shine and are unbelievably well received because it hasn't been a super challenge, but it allows you to get a tick mark on your resume that says you've done something entirely different, which pivots you into a conversation back to your point, Tara, of if you don't look like and smell like and sound like the kind of person who's going to fit the resume path I've got, I might not be able to figure out how to make that pivot for you. But if I can get something where you say, okay, you've taken the time, you've taken the effort, you've got some experience, and you've learned the new language of a new space, and you've learned all of the rhythms of that new space. So I was describing to her what, how her skills could look in a different place where she'd never been. And that, I think your point, Debbie, is exactly some of the creative ways that if you're trying to be somewhere else, and yes, you have the opportunity to take some time. And this was somebody who, for example, they couldn't quit their day job and go to another job. They couldn't quit their day job and become another person. But I said, it's like somebody who's doing school at night. Like, can you find 8 hours a week and be part-time on something where even the other thing I'd add is volunteer work is, I know many people are trying to look at how to be on boards and go be on a volunteer board, get that experience of being on a board before you're trying to get on a corporate board. Depending on where people are trying to do things, looking at finding a way to take the skills you have, the number of people I know who've gone and run the PTA who, arguably running the PTA is just like running a corporation. If like it's harder, frankly, because it's harder to navigate with just volunteers versus people who are paid. There's a lot of skills which people have, which if they want to look at how to transfer, that volunteer work also is another great space to build a capability and demonstrate that can get a resume out there. And that's a pivot I do want to take, though, is take the time beyond your resume. If you haven't been in corporate America and you want to be, and you aren't on LinkedIn, you must be. You absolutely must be. And actually, to the comment of people in the writer's strike, creatives don't typically live on LinkedIn. Corporations live on LinkedIn. And Laura, to your comment of looking at somebody who you're working with, you absolutely look at everyone you're going to meet before you meet them. What did you do? Where did you work? Who do you know? Is my brother-in-law your best friend and I just didn't know? How do you find out that kind of connection? And so for anyone who is looking for a job, LinkedIn is ever present in corporate America now, and taking the time to represent yourself well there is as important as your resume.
I would add to that, Carrie, so I hired my director of recruiting operations because I met her on Twitter. You have to think in a way where the world is smaller because being online has made it such. There are, especially during the pandemic, I can't tell you how many Slack communities I belong to where people are creating community and being able to reach out to people that you probably wouldn't have ever been able to do when you were just in a workplace going 9 to 5. So do your research, I think, in terms of like, where are the people who have interests or who, I think we've talked about this before. Many of, these wonderful people have already said this, but finding your personal board of directors, you can go in really creative ways to find those people. You can really find people around the world because I see so many people who are not just in the United States in our comments. There's a global community here, and there's an ability to be able to reach out to those people and ask questions, let them know that you're looking, connect you to someone who's doing something or whatever. But I always think about in terms of like, what Debbie was asking. And from a company standpoint, I think it's imperative for us to think about these things as well. Micro internships. A lot of times before, we were thinking about equitable hiring, the CEO's nephew's cousin who went to Yale would just ask someone, oh, I'm looking for an internship. And all of a sudden they'd show up and then they have an internship. well, how can we space that out so that a lot of people can have that same shared experience? As much as you talk about exactly what you're looking for, the experience that you want to, can you shadow someone? Can you ask them, like, tell me what your typical day looks like, because I'm really looking to do the kind of job that you do. What questions should I be asking? There's an ability to not just be stuck inside your home and like waiting for an opportunity to come. You can go out there and meet people virtually that will be on your side and be able to answer any questions. So just do all of your research, because these organizations, kind of exist. And lastly, I'll say, I speak to second career program graduates all the time. They decided to go into IT. So I will talk to them and say, here's what you need on your resume. Like, those programs exist for people where you changed your career. That program not only builds you, helps you build the skill set that you're looking for, but they will also connect you to people who actually do the hiring. So look for those credible institutions that definitely want to help people usher them into another career. But, research is so imperative. You just have to know exactly kind of what speaks to you and your lifestyle and where you want to go, and kind of be open and agile in terms of understanding the kind of advice you're going to get.
Could I disagree with Kerry for a little bit? I feel like PTA is not like corporate, it is way more. So if you've done any of the work there, please highlight that. When I got asked a question about, tell me time when you did conflict resolution. Well, PTA will be a great example there, because I like that people aren't afraid to voice their opinion, and we're all working towards a common goal, and people ask for stuff. So that there, it's a great skill that you can acquire. I can take some of the personal examples. During the time when I took my career break, I actually partnered. My oldest son was going to elementary school, and I did Project Cornerstone, which is giving life skills to young children. We'd read a book, do activities, and I was like, this is so much similar to what I did in corporate. I would do the trainings on stuff and then do activities with people. This is not different, except for the elementary kids could be a little bit more demanding of you from your energy. But it was a transferable skill. I felt like I did the facilitation, which I would have done at workplace. I could continue doing that. Finding bridging opportunity, you don't have to jump directly from where you were to drastically a different job role, but you could find how to slowly navigate into it. I'd actually partnered with few NGOs who were working on creating, delivering training programs, and that is from a space where I was in L&D, and that was a good transition opportunity for me too. Skill building, that should never stop. I think there's always an opportunity, listening to TED Talks, doing these courses that you can, and acquire certifications. That's really wonderful too. Doing mock interviews, we previously discussed, those can be helpful. And then finding a job is like a 24/7 opportunity. You don't know where the next one come from. I actually was speaking to a friend of mine. We bring both our children together for a lacrosse game, and I mentioned to her, and she said, oh, my husband's company is actually looking for a head of L&D position. And well, we didn't pursue that because of whatever reason, but I would have never imagined during a game of lacrosse, I could actually be setting my interview process. So do not necessarily think. And then I want to advise, when you knock on doors, some of them will open up the door for you and some might not. Do not get discouraged because some people don't respond to your LinkedIn messages, because somebody's not ready to help. I saw in the chat somewhere, people want to help, give them a chance. And yes, most people do want to, and they will come back. But if you don't, do not get disheartened.
One of the things I want to jump in, and I agree with you, the PTA is hard. So we're in violent agreement there. One of the pieces of advice that I was given by an executive when I was in the period that I was choosing to do what I would do next, and actually another executive had told them, and I think it was great advice, and I've shared it with a lot of people who've moved through this space, is and this is not for somebody who's coming back from a maternity leave or another situation, but if you're in a break where you're trying to figure out what to do, schedule your time. So it is an all the time opportunity to be looking for opportunities. But if all you feel like you're doing all day long, every day is trying to find a job, it really can be exhausting. And so the advice that I was given was schedule your week and give yourself. So if you have gone from being in a work setting and you're not in a work setting, that's a lot of connection and satisfaction and so forth. So give yourself a structure to it. The guidance I was given was take 2 days a week and do your interviewing 2 days a week. Volunteer 1 day a week and take 1 day a week to go take care of yourself and go for a hike or spend time with friends or whatever it might be. And another day to do all your networking and have lunch and connections and coffees and all those kinds of things as you do work through everybody. My way of doing it was actually, I always looked in the morning. So in the morning, I would get up when your brain is fresh and I would do a lot of looking then and connecting then, and I would set that up. And then I would find time in the afternoons to volunteer or to take time for myself so that my week didn't suddenly feel like it was a complete void. And nor did it feel like I was constantly trying to find something to do and not getting any satisfaction. So the volunteering gave me connections and gives you that lacrosse game where you meet the random person. And then it also gave me some structure to it. So I had a good rhythm to my life that felt meaningful and satisfying while I was looking as well.
Mm. I can't believe that we are entering our last 10 minutes for today. This hour just flew by. And for those of you in the audience who joined late, don't worry, you can go back to hackinghrlab.io and watch the recording. I was listening to the conversation and I wanted to ask you to take some minutes. I'm not ready to say that this is the last question. I still hold out hope that maybe I can squeeze one more. But here's my ask of you. How can someone who's building their returnship strategy be intentional about creating, nurturing, and harnessing connections with people in a similar situation?
I like that this question isn't about what people in the industry, but it's about shared experience in a community. I really like that. So during that time, because let's say as a new mom, I was out and I would have interactions with other moms in the age group. Some of them might have had taken a career break. Some of them did not necessarily take a break, but they could share some experiences during that time. So one is, what's your common objective? Like, what was the reason? So if this was about a baby, that's one of the option, and I guess that was easier, but it's not necessarily all the time. There's some organizations actually that work in the field about returnship, so finding those organizations, and depending on the geography where you are, I'm sure you'll be able to find, because large organizations are spending money and efforts towards building returnship programs, and they cannot all the time do it by themselves, so they work with consultants, and these are organizations. So joining those communities, if you're able to, Slack groups are great. I was part of some Slack groups, but I think slowly they phased out. I think that's a bad practice. If you're part of something, like, continue even after. So if I'm doing job search and once I get it, I'm like out, well, you never know. Your advice could help somebody else, and markets changing so drastically, you never know what connections might be helpful. So if you start something, please, if possible, continue paying it forward, continue interacting with them. The other thing that might be of help is reaching out to organizations we're targeting. So if I want to join Google, I could reach out and say, do you have a program like this? And if yes, is there a community? For example, some organizations on their career page, even if you don't have the right opportunity that you're looking for, could build a community and you can join that. And that might be one of the options too.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the few that I could think about at this time.
Thank you, Anju. Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, I think I was actually just going to say a lot of what Anju said as well. But one of my biggest thing is continue championing, because again, we become singularly focused on our own experiences, right? And so once we do get that job, then we kind of are like, okay, I'm good, and you kind of leave that group of people behind. But I think like if you don't have your own mission values and your core values as a person, you know what I mean? Like I really believe in community. That's like one of my personal core values, which is feeds the work that I do. Then, you know, I want to keep giving back. But also a lot of you are going to get jobs and you'll become hiring managers. And so then how are you remembering the experience that you had when you were out there and you were looking for a job? Can you apply that empathy to people when you're looking at resumes? If you're the kind of person who continues to learn the lessons of the experiences that you had, then I think you will make the workplace a lot better and easier for those who are returning back to work. Are you able to think about the jobs that you have open, where I think somebody in the chat said they split one job that they have open into 2 positions, right? So that allows people who have like, you know, life circumstances to be able to adhere to those. Like, how do you go forward once you've learned what you've learned as someone who's returning back to work and apply that as a person who is entering the workforce? And how do you champion that within the place that you actually end up getting a job at? Can you promote micro internships? Can you spearhead that? And a lot of the things, you know, planning for your next role too. Once you get that job, again, we have multiple talents as people. I talk to a lot of people who want to get into DE&I right now. Very challenging considering what's going on in the US. But Trojan horse some of the work that you like to do into volunteering in the workplace to say, like, I am happy to, you know, spearhead this program where we have, you know, second career people coming into the workplace, and I will put together this program. And it's not part of your job, but like how you create these opportunities once you've gotten the opportunity is going to be critical to how we change the workplace going forward.
Yeah, that is such a great point that, you know, for the people on the call who become hiring managers, the workplace and technology, it's changing so fast. We need to get away from Goldilocks hiring, looking for exactly the right person who's done the job for 10 years, and right, because in 6 months that his skills are probably obsolete anyway. They have to be able to learn on the job. So we should be hiring people. And you know, a great hire I made once, he applied for one role and I had just filled it, but I liked him so much, I hired him for a job he'd never done before. He had some skills, like it was a sales enablement job. He liked to make videos. And I was like, oh, sales enablement and videos. Well, that's a transferable skill. And I actually talked him into doing the job, and he was fantastic. And so anyone who's been through this process, who's in a position to help others, put on your hat of how can I do some creative hiring? How can I say, okay, well, customer marketing, you've never done that before, but you're such an extrovert. You're so good with people. I can totally see you doing it. Within 6 months, all the playing field's leveled anyway, because they're going to learn on the job. There are a few skills like brain surgery. Okay, you can't learn that on the job. But other things like presentation skills or business planning or, you know, whatever it is, you can learn on the job. So just hire great people and you know, don't Goldilocks the process.
I'll just share. I think if I come down, there's been so much good advice, but network. Put yourself out there, be exposed, be vulnerable. Go to, whether it's a Slack group, go to different networking things, go to evening meetups, go find all the random places that you aren't now. There's a lot of research that says loose ties. So the people who aren't your closest friends are actually the places where you find the most opportunity, because the people who know you well would tell you. Your best friends would tell you if they knew the right thing for you to do. So you need the friend of a friend of a friend who is slightly tangential to where you are. And so take the time to give yourself some small goals that you can have success with, so you can give yourself some kindness as you're looking at how you're heading through this. Have your board, but network, and know what you want to say to that network when you get there. And if you learn something by giving that feedback in the mock interviews, in the mock discussions, then revisit that. And what I'd say is it's interesting too, is in that networking, you sort of go to your first wave and then thinking about who else do you know? What other avenues do you have? And lastly, I'd say manage your expectations. If anyone on this call wanted to hire you today, it's probably going to take them 3 weeks to meet you and 4 weeks to figure out how to hire you. And by the day that they say, I want you, it's probably going to take 4 weeks. So like, have an expectation that this is a multi-month experience, unless you're looking at an hourly job where you want to get into a job today. Then yes, you can probably get a job that you get today and start next week. But in the conversation, for the most part, who's on this call, this is probably a 6 to 18 week process. And 6 would be if you met someone today and they said, oh my God, I want you, and you're the right person, and you know, that's at full speed. It's more likely 12 to 16 week process. And so manage your expectations of what that's going to look like and feel like, so that as you're going through it, you don't get totally discouraged. Keep working in waves and working through people, and manage that and take care of yourself in the process.
Debbie, bring us home. We have 1 more minute. I'm not going to ask any more questions. Bring us home.
Wow. Okay. There's so much wisdom and love and support. And I'm watching the comments and I'm just looking at how we're bridging to each other. And I'm going to actually bring us home from where we started, which was with your narrative. And I would say, believe in yourself is the first thing. And you can constantly refine your narrative. And that's the thing that we have control over. And so figure out where you want to go and build your narrative, and your network will help you get there.
Thank you all so very much, Tara, Debbie, Laura, Carrie, and Anju. It's been an immense pleasure. Thank you, everybody in the audience, either now or later on as you will watch the recording. And I just wholeheartedly wish you meaningful returnship or meaningful support for those that need it. So thank you so very much. And I hope I will welcome some of you tomorrow too for another conversation. And in the meantime, enjoy everything. Thank you.